I consider myself to be the greatest of armchair writers. In the 6th grade, I wrote a story about a fictional superhero named Pigman, and to this day, it probably remains the greatest thing I've ever created. Bumblebee is a ship I've stated multiple times to like. It was one of the things that made me get as obsessed with RWBY as I did back in the day. My interest in the ship slowly waned little by little and fell off a fucking cliff at the end of Volume 6. The problem isn't the ship itself, but the fact that its canonization came at the cost of other characters and making Blake and Ying entirely dependent on one another, making them more akin to a symbiote than an actual couple. While my writing skills are nothing special, I am confident in saying they are leaps and bounds better than Miles and Carrie, and I will absolutely die on this hill. And since Bumblebee is finally 100% without a shadow of a doubt canon, I decided to take it upon myself to write a better version of the Bumblebee we got in RWBY proper, since I believe the version we got has been hugely responsible for most of the stupid decisions the show has taken. Before I begin, I should clarify that this isn't a whole rewrite of the show, just the changing of certain aspects to fit in my version of Bumblebee while keeping main story beats and plot lines mostly the same. Let's start back in Volume 1 with Ying's character. Allow me to let you in on a little secret because I think I'm gonna blow your mind. You ready for this? RWBY and Ying are sisters. I know! I was shocked when I found out too. The show is very subtle about this fact and almost never brings it up, but I assure you, dear viewer, it is true. Sarcasm out of the way, this detail about the two is all but completely forgotten, and I don't know why. Okay, that's a lie. I can tell you why. It's because if RWBY and Ying are interacting, that means less White Rose and Bumblebee screen time, and since shippers take up 99% of this fan base, we just can't have that. Ying is an outgoing, bubbly girl, and Blake is more meek and antisocial. Kinda like Mei and Yuzu, only more boring since they're not siblings. I'm making a slight change to Ying's character. Less a slight change and more of an emphasis on a trait she had, but the writers later forgot about. Ying cares deeply about RWBY. She's incredibly overprotective of her. The show sets up, then once again forgets about the fact that Ying had abandonment issues when Summer and Raven disappeared. To rectify this, Ying is unwilling to ever leave RWBY's side at Beacon, attempting to almost become a mother figure that RWBY lacked, since she doesn't want her to have the same feelings of abandonment. Ying is still very social and energetic, but she tends not to do things that don't involve RWBY. Because of her always putting RWBY first, Ying was never really able to live for herself and tends to put others before herself as she believes her happiness comes last. Taking a look at Blake's side, she escapes the White Fang, same as before, and runs away to Beacon. And to be honest, I don't have much to change at this part. I think Blake's introduction is perfectly fine. It's what comes later I want to talk about. The scene in Volume 1 where Blake accidentally reveals she is a faunus is a good scene, though I want to make some slight changes. What I would do is have Ying discover Blake is a faunus before the rest of Team RWBY does. It could be something as simple as Ying walking in on Blake without her ribbon, or Blake sneaks away to investigate the White Fang and Ying follows her. This would require introducing the White Fang and faunus earlier in Volume 1, but hey, if we were to trim some of the fat off Jean's arc, I don't think anyone would mind. I think this would help strengthen their relationship now that they have this secret only the two of them know about. It could show Blake beginning to trust others by believing Ying won't tell anyone, as well as helping Ying by getting closer to others for once living her own life instead of basing everything she does around RWBY. The scene of Blake yelling at Weiss and revealing her identity could still remain in the show. The only difference is Ying and the viewers will already be aware of this, and the scene just serves to inform RWBY and Weiss. The last major changes I would make to Volume 1 concern the last couple of episodes. Blake would run away same as usual, and to your surprise, I would actually keep Sun as the one who works with Blake to stop Roman and the White Fang. While the two have no romantic feelings for one another, Sun being another ally for Blake to trust helps her character, because if it was just Ying doing this, we would have the same Bumblebee we have now. This time now, instead of RWBY and Penny showing up at the docks, it would instead be Ying coming to the rescue. And if we want to get really cheesy, which I love being cheesy, we could have Ying give the old "get away from her" line before charging in, mirroring what she will go on to do in Volume 3, only instead of saving Blake like right now, she gets defeated by Adam. Super corny, but it would be super fun to see. Volume 2 already has the scene that started to make Bumblebee as big as it is now, but to be honest, in a vacuum, it can easily be seen as one friend helping out another. What we need are some new scenes that show potential romantic feelings that recontextualize the previous scenes and make you think that there was more to it than meets the eye. Perhaps during the dance arc when Blake and Ying are having their dance, which we barely get to see, which is also something I would add in, Blake would confide to Ying about her problems, how she's always running away, how she's afraid she can't beat the White Fang, and maybe even Adam, which would make the Volume 3 scene more impactful if Yang knew who she was launching herself at. Yang could tell Blake about her fears of abandonment and how she's scared to let RWBY go, but has to come to terms with the fact that she can't always be there for RWBY even when she wants to be. This heart-to-heart brings them closer, and we could have some cute scene where the two get super awkward afterwards, because if there's one thing I like about my Yuri, it's awkwardness. The end credits scene of Volume 2 isn't even canon, so I think it would be safe to scrap that and instead end the volume with Yang just straight up asking Blake out, similar to what I did in my monochrome video. I just want them to get together as early as possible without rushing it, because to tell you the truth, I absolutely despise slow burn ships. It took 9 volumes and 10 years for Blake and Yang to kiss once in RWBY, so I plan to avoid that as much as possible with this. Volume 3 starts with them already together, and to be honest, most of Volume 3 can remain the same. Maybe add a few fan service scenes of Blake and Yang, but the main story beats of 3 are pretty much untouched. It would be here in Volume 3 I would have Blake and Yang kiss for the first time, because I'm not waiting another 6 damn volumes for it to happen. We can dedicate half of an episode where the two go out on a date during the Vital Festival so we can actually see the relationship, because once they go on their world-saving adventure, we won't have a lot of time for scenes like these. Now, we can't bring up Bumblebee without also bringing up the greatest piece of sex appeal this show ever had. Adam Taurus. Adam himself is getting a rewrite in this story because 1, he deserves it, and 2, his actions will play directly into Yang's and Blake's story, so he kinda needs to be included. For starters, Adam is not a groomer or abusive boyfriend. He was simply a mentor to Blake that she looked up to but parted ways with because she doesn't agree with the direction the White Fang is going. I never understood the desire to make Adam what he became in the show. Like, how can you make a literal peak character design then give him such a disrespectful personality? They already ruined Deathstroke for me. They're not ruining Adam either. As for the Volume 3 scene and how that would even go down if he isn't Ingy boyfriend, well, we could just go with my version I came up with in the monochrome video, which I think is the best way I can think of having this scene still play out without all the ex-boyfriend nonsense. Adam still cares for Blake, but since she is a traitor, Sienna Khan orders her death, and Adam is more loyal to his cause than his feelings for Blake. Neither wants this, but Adam believes there is no alternative. This is the point Yang would step in, and the rest of the scene plays out pretty much the same. Also, quick side note, but why does Adam remember Yang in Volume 6? I get in Volume 3 he knew Yang was important to Blake by how she looked at her, but was she really important enough for Adam to have unfinished business with her? You don't understand just how badly I wanted Adam to hit Yang with the old Cinder line, "Who are you again?" when she showed up in episode 11. It would have been hilarious for me, at least. Now let's put Adam on a little hiatus. Don't worry, he'll be back soon. Volume 4 is where I really want to start changing things, so let's start with Blake. Now, I can understand why the writers made the decision to have Blake run away at the end of Volume 3. Everything she feared came true, and she felt responsible and decided the best thing to do was to go back home. I don't think the writers were wrong for this, but personally, I didn't vibe with the menagerie arc, so I'm going with a different route. Instead of fleeing to home in Volume 4, instead, Blake decides that she's tired of running and plans to take the White Fang head on, pulling a reverse Volume 6 and hunting Adam down and putting a stop to him and the White Fang. This is a good excuse for her to be in Mistral, since I'm just assuming that's where the White Fang are located based on the architecture of Sienna's throne room. Meeting back up with Ranger will also be easy, but she doesn't immediately because 1, she doesn't know they're here, and 2, I imagine Blake would have a hard time facing RWBY after abandoning her sister. RWBY wouldn't view it this way, of course, but Blake is too anxious to find out. We can have Sun accompany Blake if you want. I don't plan to write anything about that, so I'll leave it up to you if you'd want that or not. Throughout the volume, I would imagine Blake fighting cells of White Fang members trying to interrogate them to find Adam. Oddly enough, none of them know anything. They aren't playing dumb, they just genuinely don't know where Adam is, which Blake finds very odd. I want Sienna to play a bigger part in the Mistral arc by introducing her much earlier in Volume 4. The plan is to have Blake and Sienna clash at Haven Academy at the end of Volume 5. Why am I having Sienna lead the attack at the Academy, you ask? Well, the same reason the writers made Adam do it, because why not? Allow me to remind you that Adam was very much against attacking Beacon until Cinder threatened him into doing so. He had no reason to attack Haven, and to be fair, neither does Sienna, but I'll leave that reasoning to someone else. So what is Yang up to during Volume 4? Well, Yang has pretty much lost all hope in pretty much everything. RWBY left for Mistral without saying a word, Weiss was taken back to Atlas, and her girlfriend, whom she thought would always be there for her, up and abandoned her just like Summer and Raven. Yang already had issues forming attachments to anybody who wasn't RWBY, and the moment she let her guard down around somebody, they left her as well. It begins to make Yang wonder if Blake ever really liked her at all, or if it was just some fling for her to have during her time at the Academy. None of this is true, but all of this on top of her PTSD from Adam really starts to put a strain on Yang and makes her feel incredibly insecure about herself. Tai Yang is trying his best, but he can't figure out how to comfort Yang since, as we were told in Volume 2 after Summer left Tai, he just kind of shut down. The latter half of the volume could be Ying trying to get back into her groove and adjust to fighting with only one arm. Regarding her arm, I don't plan to give it to her just yet. When Ying does come around to trying to fight again, I would have her learn to use her legs instead of her arms, go full Beowulf on their asses. It was always a detail that Ying struggled against opponents that fought with their legs, like Mercury and that one chick from the Yellow trailer. Having her turn that on its head and learn to master the very things she struggled against would be pretty cool, methinks. This could be a struggle for the animators, but we're talking about an ideal world here, so I'll be as unreasonable as I want. Volume 5 could begin with Ying setting out from Patch to go find RWBY. Unlike RWBY proper, where she seeks out Raven to get a fast travel to RWBY, instead I want Ying to first try hoofing it. Well, I say hoofing it, but she's of course using Bumblebee. When Ying encounters bandits from the Bronwyn tribe, similar to the real Volume 5, only instead of beating them up and making them take her to Raven, Ying tries to fight them off, but visions of Adam resurface and Ying loses the fight, and the bandits take her back to the tribe her mom coincidentally leads. Regarding the Weiss aspect, where she's also kidnapped, we could just keep that the same since this is a Bumblebee video, so I'm not interested in rewriting parts that don't have to do with that. When Ying encounters Raven for the first time, she would be overwhelmed with emotions. Remember, Ying didn't and still doesn't know why Raven left her in the first place. To her, it just looks like she's finally found her mom after all this time, and begs her to come back and join her on her journey to Mistral. Raven being Raven, though, declines, of course. She'll tell Ying and Weiss about Ozpin and Salem as she did before, and offers Ying to join the tribe where they can be a family again. This offer tempts Ying since she has the chance to finally be reunited with the person she spent her whole life looking for, but Ying would come to her senses and remember RWBY is the most important thing to her right now, and Raven wanting to do at least one thing for her daughter opens a portal to Crow and RWBY. We can get our Volume 5 reunion and all is right with the world. Mostly. Having the White Fang attack and Cinder's attack be two separate things happening at the same time in the same location was dumb, so I'm having both colliding with each other, turning Haven into one messy battlefield. Team RWBY and Juniper are fighting off White Fang members, Cinder, Hazel, and all the other ones I don't care about. During all this, we could get our fight scene between Blake and Sienna, where Sienna would lose because plot, and during her arrest would question her on the whereabouts of Adam, to which Sienna would tell her that she has no idea where he is, that Adam just disappeared after the fall of Beacon and no one has seen him since. This slightly concerns Blake, but she tries to put it out of her mind for now and decides to go help the rest of Team RWBY fight off Cinder and crew. Everything that normally happened in Volume 5 happens, and Blake finally meets back up with Team RWBY. RWBY and Weiss welcome her back with open arms, but Ying is a bit different. She doesn't hate Blake, and part of her really wants her back, but the other half is conflicted about her feelings for her. She offers no more than a quiet welcome back and leaves it at that. Blake is slightly disappointed in that response, but is also relieved that Ying doesn't completely hate her. There's very little I would change about Volume 6, because to be honest, everything before the Adam bits was baller as hell, and I absolutely loved it, but there are some scenes I want to mess around with for the sake of Bumblebee. Firstly, Ying doesn't give Blake the silent treatment throughout the volume. She'll occasionally speak to her, but it's very brief and responds with that kind of look on her face that says, I'm tired, but not the kind that sleep will fix. She's trying to keep her distance because she's afraid Blake will run off again, but also doesn't hate her enough to completely write her off. Blake tries constantly to get closer to her, and it's not until the haunted house part where they get their heart-to-heart. This time, instead of getting angry when Blake says she'll protect her, Ying is almost happy about it. Ying spent her whole life being dependable and never asked for people to return the sentiment. So when Blake, the person she likes, shows that Ying can depend on her, it gives her a sense of relief that she rarely ever felt, and she starts to open back up to Blake, and Ying, wanting to cry, asks Blake to never leave her again, in which Blake would tell her that she's not going anywhere. Blake could even explain her reason for why she left and how she thought it was in Ying's best interest, hoping to lessen the pain that she has. The last part I would change about Volume 6 isn't about Bumblebee, but it both needs to and should change solely due to how stupid it is. The Cordova scene. This time, the only big fight is the Kaiju Grim, and Cordova is on Team RWBY side because why the fuck wouldn't she be? To thank Team RWBY for helping save Argus, Cordova is willing to help them get to Atlas, and the volume ends. See, was that so hard to make two groups of people act like adults instead of petulant children? Volume 7 starts with Team RWBY not getting arrested because this time the airship isn't stolen, and everything at the start plays out the same. When Team RWBY meets up with Penny again is when things start getting weirder. Penny talks about how she's the protector of Mantle now, and talks about an increase in riots, specifically against the SDC, and it's getting difficult to get under control. She then goes on to mention how there's one Faunus in particular who keeps stirring up the people and inciting violence, and she's even gotten into a few fights fights with this Faunus. And in case it wasn't too obvious, let me pull the curtain down now and tell you that this Faunus is Adam. After the attack on Beacon, Adam wanted to take things a step further and go after Atlas and the SDC, the very embodiment of Faunus discrimination. Sienna didn't want this as she believed a fight against Atlas is a losing one, but Adam isn't accepting it. Adam tries to go behind her back and recruit White Fang members to join him in Atlas, but everyone else is too afraid to go against them either. So he gives up and just decides to do it himself. How we actually got to Mantle is unimportant. I'm not getting paid enough for this, so suspend your disbelief and move on. This is the perfect opportunity for Weiss and Adam to interact. I'm not going to touch on that because Bumblebee, but it's a good setup for another storyline. We could also get Robin in on this as well. She disagrees with Adam on a moral level with what he's doing, but because Adam is attacking Jacques Cheny, her political opponent, she's willing to turn a blind eye to his actions so she can get an upper hand. Politics, baby! Now finally, after all this time, I would give Yang her arm back. Pietro had been working on her arm this whole time at the request of General Ironwood, and when Yang finally meets him, Pietro can give her the arm, making Yang feel whole again. Also, because I'm not immune to fan service myself, the first thing I would have Ying do when she gets her arm back is immediately hug Blake. I think it's also about time Ying and Adam confront each other again. I had this idea where the two run into each other and Ying becomes petrified with fear, and Adam, not remembering her and unwilling to kill someone who's harmless to him, just brushes her off, which both relieves Yang and pisses her off that he just waved her aside. Yang's role this volume is to prepare for her confrontation with Adam, not only for herself, but he's also leading the people of Mantle to revolt against Atlas, and that's an opportunity for both Adam and Salem. If I could have my ideal Adam fight, it would start with all of Team RWBY taking him on because Adam is Adam and he's capable of disintegrating a fucking tank with one slash of a sword. Okay, quick tangent, but allow me to squeeze in a change to Adam's semblance because it was easily the dumbest shit in the show. Adam's semblance is Moonslice. We know this. He is capable of storing a power and yeeting it right back, but for some dumb fuck reason, he can only do this with his sword, which makes no goddamn sense since semblances are the power of the soul and not a weapon. They can be used as catalysts, but we're never given a reason as to why Adam never uses Moonslice without his sword, so allow me to give a reason why. Adam's semblance is powerful. Remember the fucking tank? So naturally, something this powerful should come with drawbacks, which could be that his own aura doesn't protect him from his own semblance, so theoretically he could go around mollywopping people with Moonslice, but it would shatter his hands in the process. So he uses his sword so as not to kill himself with his own power. I thought of this randomly one day while I was jerking off in the shower, yet 6 volumes and Cockanock and Tweedledick couldn't write something as simple as that. Alright, enough of that. Let's go back to the Adam fight. It would start with all 4 members of Team RWBY, because Yang knows she has to fight Adam, but admits to the team that she's scared to face him alone, and asks the rest of them to join her, because for once she wants to feel protected and not have to protect everyone else. The 4 would face off against Adam, but because Adam is strong, he takes them out one by one until it's only Yang left. Maybe Blake too, but I want this to mainly focus on Yang. Yang has been preparing for this. She's still struggling, and the only reason she's holding her ground is because the rest of the team wore him down, making things slightly more even, but even so, Adam is still stronger. Now let me say right now, I'm a proud member of the Adam Redemption team, so when Adam eventually loses this fight after a long drawn-out battle, he accepts defeat and expects Team RWBY to kill him, but because we're in a sensible universe where Team RWBY aren't cold-blooded war criminals, they let him live and decide to take a gamble. They are already aware at this point that Salem is approaching Atlas and are running low on time, so instead of arresting Adam where he'll just sit on his ass while the city gets destroyed, they instead opt to recruit Adam. They realize just how powerful he is and could help turn the tide against Salem. Adam, being a man of honor in my timeline and realizing thousands of honest lives are at stake, agrees and joins Team RWBY to finally beat back Salem. This is pretty much it for my rewrite. It's not super different from RWBY proper. I think it's just a small enough rewrite to get the same results, but without feeling as stupid and without the assassination of other characters and their own. At this point, every major plot point for Bumblebee is wrapped up. Blake and Yang have finally mended their relationship, and Adam gets his redemption, so anything afterwards is fair game. If I had my way, I would also have Adam accompany Team RWBY in place of Juniper, because I really like Adam and want more of him, and also there are just too many main characters, so I just want to cut that number down by a little bit. Bumblebee will always remain special to me, no matter how poorly written it is in the show or how annoying its fans become. For better or worse, Bumblebee has been a huge part of my life, and I just wanted to share what would have been a better version of the ship, in my opinion. You should definitely like and subscribe, because if you do, I'll give you a big ol' sloppy kiss. Don't worry, I'm over 18. Alright then. Bye-bye now.